And I thought that was just crazy and definitely a problem that needs to be solved. So it's both just giving people that financial safety net. That's my main concern. But also giving people that ability to have financial freedom and pursue their passions is something that really motivates me to kind of give that education to people.
Thanks for joining us again today at GenZ Talks. I'm your host, Dan Sullivan, and we've got another great episode lined up where we're going to be discussing the importance of financial education for young people. And we're joined by a special guest from the UK who's got an interesting background. He's a professional tennis player. He's currently on a gap year, but is going to be soon starting at Dartmouth College in September this year. And recently came up with a great initiative called the Finance Network. So I'm delighted to welcome our guest today, Daniel Webb. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here. And I'm really excited for what you and GenZ Talks are doing. So yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We had a great conversation before. And it'd be great actually to tell the viewers a little bit about your gap year, as to what you've been getting up to, and then we can dive into the questions.
Yeah, so I was meant to go to Dartmouth in September 2020, and I was doing a 4-year degree, but I decided to defer a year just because of the COVID situation. So during my gap year, I'm kind of focused on two things. Firstly is my tennis. I'm looking to pursue a professional tennis career whilst also studying at Dartmouth. So I came over to Florida because everything's locked down in the UK. So I'm training in Florida right now and also balancing that with the finance network.
Yeah, it's a really great initiative, Dan, and we're certainly going to discuss it in detail later. Maybe we can start with where your passion for financial education came from. It's certainly something I really felt from you from our first conversation in terms of your passion to increase awareness for younger people of the importance of financial literacy. So maybe you can tell us, where that came from and your experiences which increase your passion for this area.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I completely recognize that money is not the be all and end all of life. Like there is much more to life and enjoyment and stuff like that. However, from my experience, money plays a factor in the freedoms you can do. So say if your passion lies in entrepreneurship or traveling or charities, startups, whatever it may be, to really grow those interests and pursue those passions, you need to have a sense of financial literacy to fund it. You can't go traveling if you have no money. So kind of giving education to allow students from different backgrounds, particularly less privileged backgrounds or more diverse backgrounds, giving those people the education and knowledge to both firstly just manage their personal finances and create a safety net for themselves. So it's both just giving people that financial safety net. That's my main concern. But also giving people that ability to have financial freedom and pursue their passions is something that really motivates me to kind of give that education to people. I think it's quite an amazing thing if even just one person, reads articles or listens to our podcast series, gains that financial knowledge and can start their savings account, start investing their money, and then can quit their job and start their own company if they want to do that, or if they quit their job and go traveling. I think that's it gives me a lot of motivation to grow this and try and touch as many people as I can.
What kind of attitude are you seeing amongst young people are young people today more motivated to want to learn about finances?
In terms of the mindset that young people have, I definitely think there's that want to learn, the desire to understand finances, because you see a lot of people, well, especially during the pandemic, there was a lot of day traders on the stock market and stuff like that. Young people, I feel like they're seeing these things and they want to be a part of it. They just don't know how. So kind of being that resource that they can come and learn about these things from a very basic level to a more advanced level is something that we're looking to provide. In addition to that, there's also a mentality nowadays that there's a lot of want for materialistic things. So these people are looking to learn about money. They're looking to learn about how to get it, but I think there also needs to be a mindset shift about like how they're spending it. There's a lot of want for quick money or quick cash, but I really don't recommend that. I prefer like kind of long-term strategies on growing your money.
Regarding financial literacy, what are the key components young people should focus on when learning about financial literacy? Are there, one or two key components you can recommend for young people to focus on to start with, and then build from there?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'd recommend understanding debt, both the positives and negatives of it. So, for example, taking out a loan to buy a £30,000 watch versus taking out a loan for 30,000 to go to university or for educational purposes. One can be considered positive and one can be considered negative. So whilst debt isn't always a bad thing, you do need to understand it and kind of understand what it means to be in debt, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you don't really understand what you're getting yourself into and then suddenly you owe all this money to the bank. So I think debt's a very important thing for young people to understand, not necessarily to be scared of, but to be aware of. I think it's important. Then I think just day-to-day finances. So, for example, what's the difference between a debit and a credit card? You'd be surprised how many young people don't know this and how much trouble they could get themselves into just because of a lack of knowledge. Apart from those two things, I would firstly advise understanding just savings and budgeting. So before you even start investing, start growing your money, you need to have an emergency fund of 6 months of expenses. So firstly, you can't just go in and invest money before you have an account where if a rainy day comes, you need to have that money that can support you for at least a few months. So understanding savings and budgeting your costs is key. And then after you've got that, you can start looking into investing and how you can make that money grow for you. And active, passive strategies, it's more, once you've got the savings and budgeting, you can start to have more interesting discussions with financial advisors or things like that. But yeah, I'd say first and foremost saving, and then you can start looking at investing.
And I wonder if you can maybe share some different ways where young people can learn about financial literacy that you've come across.
In terms of solid resources, there's a number of different things I recommend. So firstly, if you just want to kind of get your feet wet and just start learning about finance, I'd recommend either subscribing to the Financial Times or Wall Street Journal, or those kind of things that have articles just explaining different things going on in the markets. You probably, if you're a beginner, you won't understand them, but that's not a problem, because when I was first starting this, you'd read these articles and you'd see these weird words and you can just look them up, and over time you start to understand more and more what's going on. There are also resources such as the Khan Academy. It's an amazing resource. So they do, it's like a kind of like a tutor, but like it's free. It's a platform where you can both revise for exams, whether that's in America or England. There's a lot of just educational material, but they also have material on personal finances, stock market, all different types of finance.
It'd be rude not to speak about an amazing platform which you've set up for young people in addition to what's out there. So this moves us on nicely to discuss about how the finance network came about and what's the aim of and the goals you have for the finance network going forward.
I'd founded a website where a bunch of students came together and just brainstormed and analyzed why different transactions happened. So that was the first kind of venture I did. And then I saw these different articles and stats over the summer whilst I was running that. And there were two things. Firstly, I just thought this is a big problem. That I want to try and help anywhere I can and try and get out education to less privileged kids that maybe don't have private school education, which would cover this financial stuff. So that was the first thing. And I also saw it as kind of a gap in the market and a place where, like, business wise and as an entrepreneur, you can plug that gap, because I didn't really see anywhere else that was like a one-stop shop for learning everything about finance. As I said, there are a lot of articles, individual articles, blogs out there that you can read, but there weren't many places where you can just go on and see a bunch of different articles on personal finance. We have three main elements to the website. We have the personal piece, we have the professional piece, and we have career advice. So personal wise, it's mainly, difference versus debit and credit cards, what is a mortgage, those kind of everyday things that no matter what industry you're in, you should know about. Then the professional piece is for those looking to pursue a career in finance, whether it's, just an introduction to DCF analysis or EV to EBITDA, slightly more complex, different concepts that only you really need to know if you're going into the industry. And then finally, career advice is along the same path. So it'd be, what is an investment bank? What is a private equity firm? How to structure your CV. We're really trying to kind of create an educational site where kids can come and have all of the content for a career in finance on there. And then finally, we have a podcast series where we get professionals from the finance industry, be that venture capital, private equity, investment banking, and we get them and just kind of speak to them and get their take on the recruitment process or current events, whatever it may be. Just try and kind of have those conversations and roll them out to students. I think is really good for them to hear from people that have been there and done it.
For young people watching this episode, how can I go about joining the network?
We have a couple of different social media pages. We have LinkedIn, Instagram, and we have a website. So I'd definitely recommend for students that don't yet have LinkedIn. It's such an amazing tool that I've used a lot in this past year. So firstly, I recommend getting LinkedIn and then following the finance network on it. Being a member of the finance network, I think, really provides a sense of community, because everyone on it is in a very same situation. They're either a young student or a young professional, and they're looking to kind of grow their financial knowledge. So being part of that is good, because not only do you read the articles, but you can come on the webinars or listen to the podcasts and interact with people that are in a very similar position to you.
And maybe we can round things off, Dan, by discussing what steps, in addition to joining your network, what other things could a young person do now, focus around financial literacy, that could put them in a better place in the future?
I think one of the most powerful concepts is the concept of compounding, which basically, just a brief overview of it, is the earlier you start investing, it's exponentially better for you. I think particularly when kids think about their future, they don't think too far in advance. I'm really fortunate because my dad actually in pensions. So I've been exposed to that, like the importance of having a healthy pension fund and, what's going to happen later on in your life. But a lot of kids, even I know, that are financially, I'd consider them financially educated and financially literate, they're not too focused on their pension because it's so far away that it's not really even in their thoughts right now. But it's such an important thing, because as lifespans are getting longer, if you retire at 60, you're going to need maybe 25, 30 years without an active income every year. It's really important that you've got these savings, and the earlier you can start putting that money into those accounts, the better it will be for you.
Excellent. Great advice throughout, Dan, this evening. It's been really insightful as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link to your network in the description. So anyone watching today can click on the link and find out details about what the Finance Network does, as well as a link to your profile on LinkedIn to see what, to follow your journey, because it's an inspiring one. And I look forward to following it in the future. So good luck with everything, Dan, and all the best. And no doubt we'll be speaking soon.
Thank you very much.